look what we've got there, a brand new Amazfit. This is the Amazfit Active 2, and let me just read some specs before we get into this. We've got a stainless steel case, a sapphire display, a big bright AMOLED display, a speaker and microphone, 10 days of battery life, maps and navigation, lots of training and wellness tools and smartwatch features, and the price, $129 US, and actually you can get it as low as $99. Now, as the name implies, the Amazfit Active 2 is the second generation in the Amazfit Active line. About a year ago, I tested and reviewed the original Amazfit Active, but I also reviewed the Amazfit Active Edge, which is sort of like a ruggedly built version of the Active. And when I originally reviewed the Amazfit Active, I thought it was pretty impressive for the price point. It did have a lot of quirks, but I was able to overlook those because of how affordable these watches were. Now, fast forward in time back to the Amazfit Active 2, this watch really takes away a lot of those compromises. It makes a much more compelling option at a very, very reasonable price point. Now, before we get into the full review, I just want to remind you that I've only had this watch for a few days, so I'm not going to title this like an in-depth review or anything like that. However, I have learned a lot about this watch. I've taken it out on a bunch of different runs, and I've been able to test it in terms of GPS and heart rate accuracy and some of the core metrics like sleep tracking and readiness score and all of that stuff, which we will go through in this video. I also want to mention that this watch is a pre-production unit, and because of that, it's missing some of the features that you'll find in the production version down the road, so we'll talk through that as we go through this. With that intro out of the way, let's start with the basics, pricing and options. Now, with the Amazfit Active 2, there's going to be two different versions of this watch. There's going to be a standard version that's going to come in at $99 here in the USA, and a premium version, which is the one I have here, for $129. Now, to be honest, that's such a marginal price difference that I wish they just stuck with making one version of this watch and went with the premium version at $129, because I feel like if you're spending $100, what's another extra $30 to get the extra features you get with the premium model? But that's just my opinion, yours may vary. So what are the differences between standard and premium? Well, really it boils down to two things. First of all, in the box with the premium version, you're going to get two different straps. You get the included silicone rubber band, which is what I have here, but on top of that, you also get a vegan leather band, which is what I have here. The vegan leather band here on the left is pretty interesting because it does dress this watch up quite a bit. Other than getting two bands in the box, there is one more thing that I think is actually more important than a band, and it's that the display has a sapphire lens over it. So on the premium model, you get a sapphire lens on the display, which is incredibly scratch proof, and it's actually what Garmin uses in their super high-end Garmin Fenix 8 here, which costs $1,100 here in the USA. This watch costs $129 and now has a sapphire lens, which is kind of crazy. If you go ahead and opt for the standard version of the Active 2, you will be stuck with a tempered glass display. And in my opinion, a sapphire lens is worth $30 alone. That's just my opinion. Jumping back to that sapphire display though, in terms of durability and quality, it's hard to say. As I mentioned, I've only had the watch for a few days now. I haven't been able to scratch it or abuse it or go hiking with it or drop it or any of those things. So I guess time will tell. Hey there, quick interruption. If you're finding this video fun or helpful, please consider going down and giving me a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel down below, because that really helps me out. A lot of you are not subscribed but continue to watch. Just hit that button. It would make me feel better. Also, while you're down there, also check out the links in the description down below, or you can head over to Amazon and pick up your very own Amazfit Active 2 or T-Rex 3 or any other watch I talked about in this video. Okay? Back to the video. Let's dive a little deeper on the hardware. So when it comes to the size of this watch, it is a 44mm case diameter. And as you can see on my 165mm circumference wrist, it's really not big at all. It's pretty small, and thanks to the rounded edges of the watch, it's very comfortable and easy to sleep with and wear all day. This watch is also very thin, coming in at just 10mm thick. It's also water resistant to 5 atmospheres, so it's fine for swimming in the pool or even open water swimming. And the Active 2 here is also very lightweight. The premium edition I have here, because it has a sapphire lens, is slightly heavier, coming in at just 31 grams for the case. And for a quick size comparison, I've got a few other watches on the table here. All the way on the left, we have the Amazfit Cheetah. Then we have the Google Pixel Watch 3. We've got the new Active 2 in the middle here. Then we've got an Apple Watch Series 10. This is the larger form factor. And finally, the big chunky Amazfit T-Rex 3. Flipping the watch on its side here, you can see there are two buttons. There's this top button with a red accent that's sort of the select button or jumping into your activities. And then there's a button down below that's sort of the back button. The included bands with the Amazfit Active 2 are quick release. They are industry standard, so you can buy them on Amazon or direct from Amazfit, whatever you want. And you can pop them off very easily with a single finger, just like that. And when it comes time to charge the Active 2, they do include this little magnetic puck in the box. This simply sticks on the back of the watch like that. It's very secure. And on the side here is a USB Type-C port. And you can plug any USB Type-C cable into the side of this charger to charge your watch. Now keep in mind, they do not include a cable in the box. Jumping back to the display, this display is a 1.32-inch AMOLED touch-enabled display with a 353 PPI. It's very bright, it's very vibrant, and as you would expect from just about any AMOLED out there. Now, I'm not sure what the spec on brightness is for this watch. However, I've gone on a couple of different runs out in direct sunlight, and I have no issue viewing the display even with blaring sunlight directly on the watch. In some of the examples I'm showing you, you might see some banding on the display of the screen of the watch. That's not something you actually see, that's just something with the cameras I use, so just ignore that. Moving right along to the internal guts of this watch, in terms of sensors, obviously we do have GPS and heart rate sensing. We'll talk more on accuracy later. On top of that, we also have an SpO2 sensor for blood oxygen saturation. There's a wrist temperature sensor. There's a accelerometer, a gyro. There's an ambient light sensor, a magnetic compass, and a barometric altimeter. So as you can see, this watch is really not missing anything when it comes to sensors. They sort of packed everything in here. And on top of all of that, another thing that Amazfit packed in here is a speaker and microphone, which I found very interesting because if you watched my review of the Amazfit T-Rex 3 here, which is pretty much twice the price of the Active 2. This watch is a more ruggedly built watch and things like that, but this watch also comes with a microphone built in, but no speaker. On the Active 2 here, there's both a speaker and a microphone, which makes it a much more capable device in terms of using it with your voice. What that means is you can make and take phone calls right from your wrist using the Amazfit Active 2, and yes, it is compatible with both iPhone and Android. But making calls is not the only use case for the speaker and microphone. You can also take voice memos here and just record yourself if you want to remember something, and those voice memos will also be available in the Zepp app on your phone, so you can listen to them or download them after. Now, one thing to keep in mind, because this is a pre-production unit, it means I don't have Zepp Flow on board. However, the Active 2 here is compatible with Amazfit Zepp Flow, and if you don't know what that is, Zepp Flow is an AI assistant based on ChatGPT, which is really interesting, and you'll see it in previous videos I've made about the Amazfit T-Rex 3, where you can actually interact with the watch as if it was ChatGPT. And if you're curious about the quality of the speaker and microphone on the Amazfit Active 2, I almost said T-Rex 3. This is an Active 2 video. This is what it sounds like. I'm holding this a couple inches from my mouth, and I'm actually going to play this back through a super high-end microphone to record it from the speaker. So what you're hearing is actually a recording of the speaker of the watch. What do you think? How's it sound? Next up, let's talk about the user interface on the Amazfit Active 2. Now, by no surprise, the user interface on this watch is pretty much identical to every other Amazfit watch out there. So from the home screen here, I can swipe up to access my phone's notifications. And fun fact, the notifications on the Amazfit Active 2 do support notification icons. So if you get a Gmail, you'll see a Gmail icon. If you have a Facebook notification, you'll see a Facebook icon. Now, if I swipe down from the top, you do get your quick access menu where you can adjust your brightness, see your battery level. Jumping back to the watch face though, this watch face is fully customizable. You can tap and hold on it and access a bunch that are pre-installed on the watch, or you can download from like hundreds that are in the Zepp app on your phone and sync it over to the watch. Now, swiping left or right from the watch face will cycle through all of the widgets of the watch. So if I swipe to the right, I've got my readiness score. And readiness score is based on your sleep and activity from the previous day. This is based on a variety of factors like your HRV and your resting heart rate and all of that stuff sort of aggregated into a score that you see there. So I've got an 85 for my readiness for the day. If I tap on Insight, it'll show me more information about the readiness score and a little blurb about what it actually means. One thing to note about the readiness score and the sleep score on Amazfit devices is that, in my opinion, they're a little bit generous. Like, I've never really gotten a low score when it comes to the readiness score. It's always like 85 or 90, and this is a scale out of 100. So that's to say I should always feel pretty ready, but there are some nights where maybe I'm sick or maybe I drank a little bit of alcohol where I would expect this number to go down, and it does go down on my other devices like my Ultrahuman Ring Air or even my Garmin Fenix 8 with body battery, where on the Amazfit platform, they're always pretty high. That's just something to mention, and hopefully they can tweak that in a firmware update. Next up, we've got a widget for my daily activity showing my step count, my stand time, and my active minutes for the day. Swiping over again, we've got a heart rate widget that shows you your daily heart rate. Swiping to the right of heart rate, we've got a really nice weather widget, so it shows your location. It automatically adjusts depending where you are. Swiping over one more time brings us into a list truncated view of all of my widgets. So at the top here, I have my music controls, and we'll talk more on that in a minute. Scrolling down, we have recommended apps down below that. We've got my weather widget in sort of a truncated view, my readiness score, my body temperature down below that, my alarms, and a bunch more information that I might want to see at a glance. Now from the watch face, if you click the top button, this will bring you directly into your app list. And you've got a bunch of apps in here, everything from the phone controls, which I already showed you. You've got your readiness score, heart rate, blood oxygen levels, one-tap measurement, workout, Zep Coach, workout history, workout status, activities. As you can see, there's a lot going on here, and I'm not gonna dive into each one of these things to show you what they do. I've probably done that in a previous Amazfit video, but if you have questions about it, drop in the comments down below and ask. One thing I do wanna show you is the sleep tracking. So if I dive into sleep tracking here, you can see that it recorded 9 hours and 35 minutes of sleep from my previous night. That is very rare. That actually did happen. My kids slept in, I got to sleep in, so I got a lot of sleep last night. That typically isn't the case. Down below that, we do have a sleep score. Down below the summary page, we do get more information like my REM, my deep sleep, my light sleep, my awake time, and any naps that I've done throughout the day. And of course, all of this health and wellness information is available and synced over to your phone in the Zep Health app, where you can see it in more granular detail. Now let's talk about music. So on a lot of Amazfit products, including the Amazfit T-Rex 3 here, they provide an internal storage for offline music, including MP3 playback. Now, in my opinion, that is not super valuable because if you don't have services like, Amazon Music or Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, it's really hard to convince people to use that service because not a lot of people these days use MP3s. I know some do. I don't, and I think the masses would agree that most people are using some streaming software by now. Jumping back over to the Active 2 here, this watch appears to not have any internal storage for music. I can't find a way to load music on it. Maybe I'm missing something, maybe that's a pre-production thing, but from all I can tell, this watch does feature music controls to your phone. So if I tap on this little widget here, you can see there down the bottom it says phone music. And I can bring the volume up and down, I can play and pause, and I can skip forward and back tracks. Jumping back to the watch face though, if we push the bottom button instead of the top button, this will bring us directly into our activity menu. This watch features 164 activity profiles for everything from walking to running to way more niche activities like badminton and gaming. However, there is one limitation with the Active 2, and that it does not support multi-sport activities. I don't see the profile available. If I jump into any of these activities, I'll click outdoor running, for example, I do get this loading page here, and if I click on go, that will start the activity. Another downside to the Active 2 is that if I push this top right button, it won't actually start the activity. You do have to tap on the screen to start the activity. I prefer to push a button. That's just my opinion. And of course, in the settings for each activity, you can fully customize each data page. So as you can see here, I've got my workout duration, my distance, my heart rate, and my pace. And this is what it would look like if I started an activity outside. If I want to change out any of those pieces of information, I can simply tap on them. For example, if I want to change out heart rate, and now I have a bunch of other metrics I can include here. And of course, after you complete an activity with the Amazfit Active 2, you can sync your activity over to third-party services, Strava, Komoot, Training Peaks, Google Fit, Apple Health, and a couple of others. And on the topic of activity tracking, we also have external sensor support. That's right, a $100 watch with external sensor support. And interestingly, it has the same support as the much more expensive Amazfit T-Rex 3. Now, this watch will support Bluetooth external sensors, and it can be anything from a heart rate sensor, a running power sensor, cycling power, cycling speed, and cycling cadence. And on top of that, the Amazfit Active 2 can also broadcast your heart rate to nearby devices. The Amazfit Active 2 also supports training tools. So here you can see I've got a training load from my past 7 days. And this is a feature you typically don't see in a $100 watch. Scrolling over, we also get an estimated VO2 max. Right now, mine is telling me a VO2 max of 48, which is considerably lower than what I've been tested in a lab, or even on my Garmin watch, or the Coros's, or the Polar, or the Suunto. And this is something I've seen with Amazfit watches for a very long time, that they always seem to underestimate estimated VO2 max. Swiping over again, we also get a recovery advisor. As you can see, I went off on a pretty hard run today, so it's recommending I rest for 70 hours. I probably won't do that, but at least it's there. Next up, let's talk maps and navigation on the Amazfit Active 2. This is something that really surprised me because this watch is so affordable, and it does have mapping and navigation capabilities, just like the more expensive Amazfit T-Rex 3. What this means is that you can go on your phone in the Zepp app and actually download an area or a region of a map directly to the watch. So you'll have offline mapping capabilities inside the storage of the watch. And that means you could be off on your trail run or hike and still have a map of your surroundings for context to see what's going on around you. You can pull in a pre-designed GPX file for course navigation on top of the mapping. These maps are completely free within the Zepp app on your phone, and you can download ski maps for ski resorts in your surrounding area as well. They are not routable maps, so they're not on the same level as something like a Garmin, but they do have map labels. That means when you see an upcoming road or intersection or trail, you'll have a little piece of text on that line to indicate what it is. With that said, I do have one piece of advice for Amazfit when it comes to navigation and mapping. I would love it if they put a built-in course builder directly into their app in the Zepp app on my phone, so I wouldn't have to download a GPX file from Strava and then share it with the watch. I just want to build it in the app and then share it with the watch. It would just take out an extra piece of software from the equation and make it a lot simpler. Next topic, battery life. The Amazfit Active 2 features a 270 milliamp hour battery, and what that equates to is about 10 days of typical use with default settings. Now keep in mind, default settings are pretty limiting. The heart rate tracking will be set to 10-minute intervals, and you've got a lot of other features that will be turned off by default, like HRV tracking and stress tracking. When you turn everything on, it really boils down to like 5 days of typical use. On top of that, there is a battery saver mode that will reduce the frequency of all the sensors being used, and that'll actually get you about 19 days of use if you're traveling or something like that. In terms of GPS on battery life on the Amazfit Active 2, you're looking at about 21 hours of use on a single charge during a bike ride or a run. And that's pretty solid for a watch in this price point. However, it does mean you're not going to run your next 100 miler with the Active 2. I wouldn't expect that, but you should get through a full marathon, a 50K, a lot of things with 21 hours of battery life. And in my testing so far, it's right on track to hit that claim. With battery life out of the way, let's talk about GPS modes and accuracy. So this watch is not a multi-band device, and what that means is that it should not be on the same level as something like the Amazfit T-Rex 3 or the Garmin Fenix 8, because these are multi-band devices. So what does that mean for actual GPS accuracy on the Amazfit Active 2? Well, it does pretty good, even though it doesn't have that advanced technology. I've taken this watch out on a few different runs, and during those runs, I've done things like went to a local track where I did a bunch of laps. I did not use track mode because I wanted to test out the GPS accuracy. I stayed in the same exact lane the whole time, and I wanted to see if each ring of the track would land right on top of itself, indicating pretty good accuracy. And as you can see, the Amazfit Active 2 did a decent job here. Each lap of the track was pretty close to being stacked right on top of itself, though there is some deviation. It's still pretty good for a watch in this price range. In another example, I took this watch out on a 5-mile out and back run. And again, the idea here is to see if both of those tracks, the out and back, land right on top of themselves. Now in this example, I did see a little bit of drift. It didn't land right on top of itself, and I would say the overall accuracy of the track was meh. It was okay, not like blown away by it, but given the price point of this watch, I probably wouldn't complain about it, and you probably wouldn't either because you wouldn't be comparing it to other devices. Now, the interesting thing about the Active 2 and its GPS accuracy is that the overall distance recorded from the Active 2 matched up pretty favorably to my Garmin Fenix 8 with the highest accuracy setting turned on, which I was surprised about. With GPS accuracy out of the way, let's talk about heart rate accuracy from the optical sensor on the back of the watch. It gets a little bit confusing because I took this thing out of the box and I went for a run, and when I came back and analyzed all of the information after and compared it to my ECG chest sensor I have here, I noticed the results were not very good. When I compared the Active 2 to the ECG sensor, I noticed that, generally speaking, when I was in that upper register like zone 4, the Amazfit Active 2 was overestimating by about 20 beats per minute. So I had myself scratching my head, and I actually think I found the solution. When I first got the Amazfit Active 2, I took it out of the box and I attached the leather band, or the vegan leather band, and not the silicone rubber band. And I did that just because I like the look of this, I wanted to try it out, but I was using that during the initial run with this watch. And what I found, because this vegan leather band is not very stretchy, it's pretty static, you can't really get a super dialed in fit with the Amazfit Active 2 and the leather band. So what I did, I changed it out for the rubber band, and I went back out on a tempo run for 5 miles. I was pushing myself pretty hard. I was in that upper zone 4 register, and what I found is that the Amazfit Active 2 performed way better during this run, nearly matching the ECG sensor almost bang on the entire run. So what does that say in terms of accuracy for the Amazfit Active 2? Well, it's hard to say. It's still early days here. I need more time with this watch, more testing to come up with a better conclusion on this. But I will say, if you buy this watch and you want the best accuracy from the optical heart rate sensor, definitely use the silicone rubber band and don't use the leather band. You save this for a night out on the town or something like that to dress up the watch. Okay, it's time for final thoughts and conclusions from my initial review on the Amazfit Active 2. What do I think about it so far? Should you run out and buy it? Well, it's a mixed bag. First of all, generally speaking, I really like the look of this watch. They really nailed the aesthetic. It's definitely got a premium look and feel to it, especially for the lower price point. And I'm blown away by the fact that they're able to put a sapphire lens on a $129 watch. That's pretty wild. The user interface is nice and fluid and reactive and responsive, and it all just works. It's a lot like what I found with the Amazfit T-Rex 3, just on a more affordable package. With that being said, there are some quirks, like the readiness score and the sleep score seem a little bit off. They're a little bit overestimating. The estimated VO2 max is a little bit low and underestimating, and the training load seems a little bit wonky. But these are complaints I've had for a while with Amazfit at large and not specific to this device. At the end of the day, the Amazfit Active 2 checks a crazy amount of boxes. It's got a hilarious spec sheet with just about everything under the sun on it for a very affordable price. And I think this watch is really marketed towards that person that might be looking at something like an Apple Watch or maybe the Pixel Watch or something like that, and they can't really swallow that, $400 price tag, and you want something more affordable with a lot of similar features and maybe more sports-centric. That's where the Amazfit Active 2 comes in. So if you're on a budget, if you're looking at a watch close to $100, this is definitely one to consider. But now's the point of the video where I want to hear from you. Are you interested in the Amazfit Active 2? Do you know what Amazfit is? Have you heard of the brand before? Do you have an Amazfit? Are you impressed by it? Let me know your thoughts about this watch in the comments down below. I would love to hear from you. And after you're done commenting down there, also consider going down and giving me a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel down below so you don't miss more videos from me in the future. I tend to make videos like this pretty often, so hit that subscribe button. Do me a favor, because like 80% of you are not subscribed, and it would really help me sleep better at night. And after you subscribe, also make sure to drop into the description of this video down below, where I will have links to the Amazfit Active 2, the T-Rex 3, and all the other watches I talked about in this video. And after you check out the product links, also check out the links to my other social media accounts, like my podcast, my Instagram, my Threads, my Strava account, and my merch store, where you can buy a sweet t-shirt like this or a really awesome hat. And with that, we have reached the end of this video. I thought it was going to be short, but it turned out to be pretty long. Sorry about that. Hopefully you got some value from this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!